In May of 2001, I had the tremendous honor of a solo exhibition at the Butler Institute of American Art in Youngstown, Ohio. And the Butler is one of the most comprehensive and beautiful collections of American painting in the nation, and I highly recommend it if you were ever in Ohio. In 2001, I was 36, so I already had 12 or 13 years of exhibition history under my belt. So there was a fairly substantial and concise body of work to cull from private sources, from other museums, and from galleries to put together this fairly large exhibition, which ran for 3 or 4 months. I still get emails from people who saw that and remember it fondly and want to share that via email. The way the exhibition came together was through a group of influential people. My great buddy John Raimondi, the sculptor and collector, the director of the Butler Institute, Lou Zona, and a very important private collector who will remain anonymous. And the fourth person was Robert Rauschenberg. I don't tell this often, a lot of people don't know this, but he was having an exhibition at the museum the year prior, in 2000 I think, and was being given a tour of the collection. And I have a painting in that collection, that permanent collection. He apparently stopped dead in his tracks and said, "Who is this artist? Why have I never heard of this name before?" And really loved the painting. And that enthusiasm, that infectious enthusiasm, coupled with his stature as one of the seminal American artists of the 20th century, helped get the gears turning, which would result in that exhibition. And I'll never forget an evening, I think I was in Chelsea at a gallery, I got a call from Lou Zona on my cell phone asking me if I would have a show at the Butler. And imagine a 6'3", and I weigh a little more than 2 bills doing cartwheels down the street. I don't think I slept that night either. It was a great, great moment in my life. And the painting, by the way, if you want to check it out, is plate number 8 in my book, if you have the book, Collection of the Butler Institute of American Art. And somewhere I've got a picture of Rauschenberg and me around that time. I can't find it. If I do, I'll put it up on one of the upcoming episodes. But man, what an honor. Thank you, Mr. Rauschenberg. Rauschenberg died in 2008, and he was a fellow Southerner. He was a kind man. He helped me. I've always recognized his extreme prominence in 20th century American art, but I've always felt a very visceral, very personal connection to his work. His combines, where he would take things from everyday life, things with content of their own, pre-existing content, and then reconfigure them, put them together in a very tight visual way, and change the context, change the meaning, therefore bringing in other intellectual concepts like authorship, originality, a great sense of humor, and a visual acumen of putting together material in a way that is beautiful in itself, that speaks of poetry and depth and truth. That's the problem I have in a lot of work today with grand concepts, with rigorous, lofty ideas, but crappy painting. Rauschenberg understood the painting side of it, the visual side, the visual language, and the ideas were tight and profound. He always said that he wanted to act in the gap between art and life. And that's very much the way I think. There's no difference between my life and my work. They're the same thing. Making a painting is like living a life. It involves a single-minded endeavor which has the same triumphs and miseries, humor, attention to detail, and fleeting moments of clarity that one experiences in life. There's no difference to me between the two. And one of the pieces of Rauschenberg's I'm thinking about a lot over the last 6 or 7 months is The Bed from 1955 here in the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. And it literally is his bed on the wall. He's taking something that you can't get more personal than your bed, something that has content already and something that's familiar to us. We don't even think about it, something we do every single night we get into bed. And A bed has its own meaning already. It speaks of sex and death and dreams and sleeping and making babies, and there are lots of images one can connote with a bed. He's taking it out of a horizontal format, changing it to a vertical format, the format of a painting, and then putting it on the wall of a museum, thereby changing the context, forcing it from one context to another. And then he's painting on it in an abstract expressionist way, suggesting, again, authorship and touch and color, movement of color, and painting, the history of painting. All in a very, very highly personal and very poetic way. Over the years, over the past 20, 30 years, I've worked very hard to find modes of imparting myself and my life, my real life, into my work, into my painting. Some of the things I did early in college were very elaborate shaped canvases, which were bolted together. They went across the floor, up the wall, across the ceiling over your head. They were freestanding in the round, so that when you walked into the lobby of the Fine Arts Department at the College of Charleston, you had to negotiate your way through my paintings to get to the elevator where you were going. At first, they didn't like that, but I did it anyway, so then it was okay. Later on, I would nail my shoes, my tennis shoes, to the bottom of a painting and then lean it up against the wall, trying to take little bits of my person and put it onto the artificial realm of the painting. And then in the early 90s, after grad school, just before the river paintings, which was my New York City debut, I was doing these shaped canvases like this one. This is the one I have left, where I would take articles of my clothing, my t-shirts and socks and things, cut them up, and I would stuff them between the stretcher and the canvas to create these rounded, puffy edges, which allude to the human body, to the shoulders or the hips. And they also suggest or explore the notion of peripheral vision, the way that in the real landscape, in the real world, you look at one thing in focus and everything else is out of focus. The way standing in front of a real landscape is. So the way that I would suggest this or allude to this in a painting is to eliminate the edge and have the image go all the way around to the back and on both sides. And then I would underscore that by stabbing holes through the canvas with the ass end of a brush. And critics would often say, oh, he's puncturing painting. No, I was stabbing. The violence is part of it. That's the whole point. A painting is a violent act. It's also a political act. Making a painting involves destructing or shattering the way that someone perceives the world, and then reconfiguring that in an artificial way, which will hopefully lend a clarity and a concentration and a resonance to the way we see the world. And if it's good, over a period of time, it can change the way you see. Certainly in my experience, the way I see the world is highly dictated or influenced by my exposure to paintings. These holes would sometimes be small, like these, or sometimes I would cut them into very large holes, which would reveal the threads of the canvas, the stretcher bar in the back, and sometimes even the wall. When it was hanging in a gallery, you could see right through the painting to the wall, the actual wall, with the shadows and everything. Much an homage to Lucio Fontana, his punctured and cut pieces, his slashes, who I like very much. You'll notice also that these holes are in circular motifs. And that comes from the mucky, slimy riverbanks of South Carolina, where I grew up. In dusk, sometimes you'll see mosquitoes, or we call them no-see-ums, flying in these loops, these circular loops, just before the sun goes down over the water. I always thought how hauntingly silent and beautiful that was, that Ferris wheel of bugs. And that's where that comes from. This large new painting is a good example of the process of bending space. And if you look at this tree-like form right here, you can see it starts at a cobalt teal, moves up into a bright green, and then peaks with a bright yellow green, which is more aggressive and tends to bow out and suggests the bending of space. Another passage where I'll try to bend space is at the very edge. You can see this purple, this abutment of dioxazine purple and titanium white, which is the edge of the painting and which also suggests the interface between the painted world and the real world just to the left of that.